The Undertaker is without question one, if not the greatest wrestlers of all time. Having a WWE career that has spanned 30 years, that has created a legacy that is unmatched by any other wrestler in history. The Undertaker has certainly solidified himself as the greatest wrestling character of all time. One of the special things about the character of The Undertaker is that he's kept kayfabe intact for almost 30 years and has been the only wrestler in the history of WWE to keep kayfabe alive and keep the aura of his character intact for those 3 decades. He has admitted to himself at times this has been hard, as he's had to turn down money-making business opportunities in favor of keeping the legacy of the character intact, which is incredibly admirable. In recent times, we have finally got to see the man behind the Undertaker character, Mark Calaway, for the first time ever in the acclaimed WWE Network series, The Last Ride. This was the first time in 30 years that we were able to hear from the man behind the character and understand his triumphs and tribulations. It is without question that there will never be another superstar in the WWE like The Undertaker, and this video is going to examine why. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. One of the reasons that the character of The Undertaker was so successful was because of its natural evolution. When he debuted in 1990, he was a silent, mysterious figure, and this would later be fleshed out with a legendary association with Paul Bearer. Just a few years later, the character would become so established and so popular that he would turn babyface and be one of the WWE's top megastars moving forward. However, as WWE began to enter the Attitude Era, Undertaker realized that he needed to add a deeper element to his character in the hopes that it would remain fresh and popular. The Undertaker launched the Ministry of Darkness, a cult-like stable that, albeit having a short run, would be incredibly popular and memorable. The Ministry of Darkness consisted of The Undertaker, Paul Bearer, the APA, The Brood, Viscera Midian, and their aim was to take over the WWE from Vince McMahon. The stable was a part of several notable segments, including the time The Undertaker kidnapped Stephanie McMahon. However, he was realizing that the crowd was gradually getting bored of the supernatural elements of his character, and he needed a big change, and fast. In 1999, he was in discussions with WCW regarding jumping ship and using his real name Mark Calaway, but thankfully he opted not to make this drastic move. The Undertaker would instead go a step forward in his career, re-debuting as the American Badass, where he would be an outspoken biker who didn't take any prisoners. The character was a complete contrast to his prior persona, but it was still the Undertaker at heart, and he would mention in his promos that he was still down with the devil. This evolution was one of the biggest risks of The Undertaker's career, because if it would have flopped, it could have been fatal for his success, popularity, and longevity. The American Badass evolved over a 4-year period and included many famous feuds, including one with Brock Lesnar that fans still talk about to this very day. However, in 2004, The Undertaker would revert back to the dead man persona but would keep the wrestling style of the American Badass. The decision of having a hybrid between the two was welcome, and the fact that they kept the wrestling style of the American Badass was crucial in keeping him relevant, as then he could have compelling matches with the likes of Kurt Angle and appeal to the desires of the Ruthless Aggression audience. Around 2006, The Undertaker went from being known as the best characters on the roster to being one of the best in-ring competitors WWE had. He began to have classic matches with the likes of Kurt Angle, Batista and Edge, and then at WrestleMania 25, he had one of the greatest matches of all time against Shawn Michaels. At one stage, The Undertaker went from wrestling Batista, Edge, Shawn Michaels, Triple H and CM Punk at consecutive WrestleMania events, and each one was a defined classic. This established legendary character that had been previously known for a simple moveset and basic match style had evolved so much that he was able to hang and have a 30-minute clinic with the very best in the wrestling world. Now, one of the reasons that the Undertaker gimmick may have lasted the test of time was the fact that only Mark Calaway could have pulled it off. The gimmick in essence is rather out there. The Undertaker in essence is a walking zombie who had links to the undead and the supernatural, and if this gimmick debuted today, it would be instantly rejected. This is especially true in relation to the more supernatural and outlandish aspects of the gimmicks, such as lightning strikes coming from the Undertaker's hands, or the Undertaker sticking his hand through a grave minutes after being buried alive. Despite this, WWE have recently debuted The Fiend Bray Wyatt, who does share the same characteristics to the Undertaker's gimmick, as The Fiend can magically appear out of nowhere, and whilst that hasn't been completely rejected by the audience, it's because the fans had a preconditioned connection with Bray Wyatt and they wanted him to succeed, so it's unclear if that love for Wyatt allows the audience to overlook the rather outlandish nature of the gimmick in question. Seth Rollins recently appeared on the episode of WWE's After the Bell podcast and discussed The Undertaker and if his gimmick would work in today's WWE. Rollins stated, "His character doesn't work today. There are some weird exceptions. Bray Wyatt comes to mind from an ultra character perspective who sort of slides by a little bit or gets a pass. The Undertaker character is so supernatural, so now that he's at a point in his life where he's comfortable transitioning out of the character and into Mark Calloway, it makes it okay for me to watch it and see him being a human being. In the long run, I think it will help him transition into being himself and retirement for whatever the next phase of The Undertaker looks like." Now, wrestling fans have become well known for quickly turning on their favorite superstars. Fans, especially those on social media, voice their opinions on whether a certain superstar should be pushed, but when that superstar gets a push, they quickly get bored and then turn their attention to the next wrestler. This has been seen countless times over the years, and you could even argue that it dates back to the rise of John Cena during the Ruthless Aggression era. In relation to The Undertaker's character, if The Undertaker's character debuted today, how long would it take for the fan base to turn on him? If WWE followed the same initial presentation of the character, fans would no doubt take issue with the strong booking and claim that he was burying everyone on the roster, not to mention getting into a main event title program very quickly. One of the things The Undertaker had become known for was his WrestleMania unbeaten streak. He would go on 21 years of being unbeaten at WrestleMania before it would drastically end at the hands of Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. Now, if WWE started to give another wrestler in today's WWE a win streak of the same, do you reckon there wouldn't be a massive backlash? All it takes is for someone to win 1 or 2 matches in a row on television, and then there's a certain group of fans who argue that that individual is overrated and should be depushed with immediate effect. However, there is indeed the argument that those wrestling fans who act in this manner don't make up for the majority of the audience. Casual viewers aren't as fickle and simply watch to enjoy wrestling, meaning a character such as The Undertaker debuting today may appeal to that side of the audience. Now, there is the expression that kayfabe is dead. Fans know the ins and outs of wrestling and are able to see wrestlers' private lives play out before their eyes thanks to social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram. The Undertaker himself, during an appearance on the WWE's The Bump, stated that the character would be impossible to portray due to social media. Fans would instantly know who the man behind the character was. It may impact the mystique and aura surrounding the gimmick. The Undertaker resisted using social media until 2018. However, when he joined, he used The Undertaker's persona, but his tweets are very much the thoughts of Mark Calloway. The Undertaker has been part of the WWE for 30 years. It's unlikely that anyone will have that kind of run ever again, especially with the way wrestling styles have changed over the years and wrestlers often explore other avenues such as acting. The Undertaker has been dedicated and loyal to his craft. As a consequence to the WWE and Vince McMahon, this loyalty has been unmatched. There isn't a better example of loyalty in wrestling than the relationship between Vince McMahon and The Undertaker, and you can see this very closely on the Last Ride documentary, especially when Vince begins to choke up when asked what The Undertaker means to him. This act of loyalty will never ever be overshadowed, especially in the era where social media is a platform that disgruntled wrestlers can moan about their prior employer and their relationship. It was revealed on the last part of the Last Ride documentary series that The Undertaker is content if he never wrestles again. This comes after years of not being satisfied with his last match. For instance, his match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33 was supposed to be his send-off, however the match wasn't the level of the fans nor The Undertaker wanted. However, at WrestleMania 36, he wrestled AJ Styles in a Boneyard match, which was beloved by fans as it was literally a mix between The Undertaker, the American Badass, and Mark Calloway incorporated into one match. It featured The Undertaker literally riding off in the night, which would be a perfect closeout to a near-perfect career. Whatever The Undertaker decides to do now is his decision, but if we in fact have seen the last of the legendary character, one thing is clear: there will never be another superstar like him. Will there ever be another superstar like The Undertaker? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.